Welcome to another stream of streamed proportional streams. All right, so today, Demi Lovato took it upon herself, or as she, I think, is trying to say themself, I think is her pronouns. I don't fucking know. We're about to watch some stuff on it. But took it upon themselves to declare that they are non-binary. Now, if you don't know Demi Lovato is an attention whore and always has been. And trusting or believing a word that ever comes out of that mouth hole is not a wise decision, as it were. So, as an attention whore who needs to find their way into relevancy from time to time, it should come as no surprise that there are these sorts of announcements from her corner of the world. So we're going to, take a dive into a video that she posted about coming out. Obviously, Demi Lovato has a huge history of not identifying as female. a giant history. As you can see by the thumbnail of this video and a quick Google search, Demi Lovato has often struggled with her. I can't even. So, if it's not her being bullied or something else, she always has to have something that she's a victim of, right? That's been Demi Lovato's entire career, is being a victim of something. And I guess being bullied wasn't fun anymore. And, who am I to deny an attention whore their attention, right? Who am I to say to this attention whore that they can't have my attention? So let's give attention to the whore who has demanded it. Whore as an attention whore, not as in derogatory adult entertainer for cash. So yeah, I have said very, very unpleasant things regarding the character of Demi Lovato before, because she just has poor character as an individual. She's demonstrated on multiple occasions having poor character, not working well with others when she's had roles where she's had to work with others in TV shows and other things. Very egocentric, self-centered, very much driven by attention. The problem I'm going to have with this whole thing more than anything is that a lot of the LGBTQ community, the fake variant, as I like to call them, are going to embrace this and shout it as bravery and bold and amazing, when this is the worst thing for people who actually struggle with the type of issues that Demi is claiming to have, or we're going to see will eventually be claiming to have in this video. It's this is the toxicity that increases social stigmas, because people who aren't, idiots know that Demi is just bullshitting because they want attention, obviously. And then when the rest of the community embraces them, then people who are not open to this community are going to assume that everyone in the community is bullshitting, and then start to have bigotry and hatred towards them. That's how this stuff happens. So if you are in the LGBTQ community, do not support this kind of filth. It does not help you. It will increase the stigmas against you, and that I can guarantee. But anyway, let's watch what the statement is and have a jolly good time.
Living in the fourth dimension means existing conscious.
No, stop. Don't talk about living in the fourth dimension. We're 2 seconds in. Living in the fourth dimension means no. I'm sure this is just some figurative thing. Maybe it's some TV show or something, but no, that's not what dimensions are. You're already annoying me.
In both time and space.
That's not what fourth dimensional space means at all.
But for me, it means having conversations.
Nobody cares what it means for you.
That transcend the typical discourse. I want to take this moment to share something very personal with you.
You've shared a lot of very personal fake stuff with us over the years, Demi, so go ahead. I like that you cut your hair for the occasion, though. You know, you've been someone who has vehemently embraced your femininity your entire career. You've sold your femininity. You've abused it, as some might say. But now you're like, well, it's been a rough couple years. Maybe I'm not in shape as much as I like to anymore. Let me cut my hair and say I'm non-binary. That'll get me attention. You are as fake comes.
Over the past year and a half, I've been doing some healing and self-reflective work.
In other words, over the past year and a half, I haven't been able to tour because of the pandemic, and I'm trying to find a way for people to pay attention to me again so I can make a lot of money as these COVID restrictions lift.
And through this work, I've had the revelation that I identify as non-binary.
No, you don't, you fucking bitch.
With that said, I'll officially be changing my pronouns to they, them.
All right, I'm going to call you she even more now because you hurt the entire transgender community with this bullshit. Because, I'm sorry, transgender is a real thing. Non-binary is some fake nonsense bullshit. Non-binary is sociology. Sociology isn't real. Psychology is real. You can't identify as non-binary because non-binary doesn't exist. Gender isn't a thing. Gender is made up nonsense. So there's no importance to your gender. There's only importance to your biological sex. And if you don't identify with your biological sex, that's called dysphoria. And there's actually a lot of strife that comes with that needs to be overcome and handled delicately and accepted and possibly have surgical treatments for, or whatever else, hormone therapies at the appropriate ages and that kind of stuff. But just saying I'm not a guy or a girl, I just don't feel like it. That's not a thing. It's not a psychological thing. It's a social thing. You don't identify with gender stereotypes, which problematically enough, Demi Lovato does identify with gender stereotypes and has her entire fucking life. You don't just get to say, you know what? Pandemic was weird. I'm bored now. I don't identify as a woman or a man now. Okay? Most of us don't. Most of us, by the terms of non-binary, spend most of our existence as non-binary. Most of our daily interactions, decisions are not based on our biological sex. Just certain ones are. So most of us act through most of our days as not identifying with either biological sex because it doesn't matter.
I feel that this best represents the fluidity I feel in my gender expression and allows me to feel most authentic and true to the person I both know I am and still am discovering.
Look at that fake-ass smile with those fake-ass eyes. This is someone you do not ever trust. Look at this face. Look at this face and memorize this face. And if you interact with someone in real life who makes these kind of facial expressions, just don't ever trust that person. You don't have to automatically dislike that person. Maybe they're fun to hang out with, but don't trust that person. Don't put yourself in a position where this person could do any harm to you economically, physically, or otherwise.
In this first episode, I'm excited to share with you what this means to me and what it may look like for other people. I want to make it clear that I'm still learning and coming into myself.
There's no self you're coming into. Again, you are an attention-starved person. You always have been. I hate so much that you'll get support for this. Everyone will call you brave, and they'll say it's a huge victory for I don't even know what community. The non-binary community, because they're so oppressed. Why would you ever need to tell anyone that you're non-binary? Because first of all, it's not an actual thing. It's a social boredom, right? To be something as petty as non-binary is social boredom. There's no one in a third world country or developing nation, as the prissies like to call it these days. There's no one there who one day wakes up and they're like, oh, the big struggle of my day is I don't identify as a man or a woman. I'm non-binary. Oh, God. It couldn't happen because they're not bored enough to make that shit up. Like, there are transgendered people in third world societies because that's a psychological reality. There are homosexuals, and bisexuals because that's just a psychological disposition. But there's no such thing as non-binary unless you make it up. It's a sociological term. It's not an actual thing. It's literally made up. Gender is literally made up. Only biological sex exists, and the only alterations to biological sex have to exist physically and psychologically, which means transgender and or sexual preferences. Anything beyond that doesn't actually exist.
And I don't claim to be an expert or a spokesperson.
Because you're neither. At least you're not making that claim.
I know this might be a new conversation for many, so I'm inviting my friend Alok, someone I trust.
What's Alok? That's a name? They renamed themselves.
To spend time on this platform. Alok is an author, performer, and an important voice within the non-binary community.
There's a non-binary community. God, can we have another I know we had the fucking boomer doomer, but can we have like a real struggle so that these kind of things don't have a chance to exist? Like, these things don't exist if real problems exist. They just don't. This only can come out of a life of lavish privilege and boredom. You don't see people who have experienced extremely hard lives being like, I'm non-binary. No, they might be transgender. They might be gay. They might be bi, because those things are real. But what is this crap? But of course, it would come from Demi, because attention-starved.
And beyond. Their work to create visibility, equality, and understanding has inspired me on my healing journey.
You don't have a healing journey. You should be in a rehab center, though, because some of your habits might kill you early, and I don't wish death upon you or anyone else unless, the only people that I wish death upon are people who are murderers or, guilty of unspeakable acts. You are neither. So maybe, get into rehab so you don't end your life prematurely through bad decisions.
We'll discuss identity at large, but also take the time to personally reflect on how I came into my truth so that we, like many others, are able to live our lives authentically.
You would say my truth, your truth, blah, blah. As soon as someone says it's my truth, we know that, so it's not actually true, so it doesn't matter.
In just a minute, I'm going to share space with Alok and dive.
Share space with Alok. Yeah, this is a cult. This is the far left, this part of the left of politics, the Twitter woke crowd, is a cult. Every way that they operate is cult mentality. If you're not with them, you're the enemy and you must be outcast, you must be canceled. It's a cult. It is by definition of everything that could be a cult. The only thing that's missing is a true leader, but it's just a polytheistic cult. There are many gods in this cult instead of just one. So instead of one main person to make you drink the Kool-Aid, it's all of the different celebrities that endorse it. They are all the gods within this cult. But it is definition of a cult. I'm not saying that as a euphemism. I'm not saying that as a political commentary or goofy, sarcastic jab. It is factually, objectively, and undeniably a cult. By definition, mindset, and action, and there is no ways around that. There is no mincing words. There's no dancing around it. When you're in this part of the left wing, you are part of a cult. You deny science, which is very common in cults. You reject anything that's not from within the cult, and you violently lash out to other communities that disagree with the cult. It is a cult.
Dive deeper into this conversation.
Oh, that's it? Oh, that's a bummer. I guess, where's the shared space? I need to see the shared space. Is there a video that has the space being shared? Oh God, is this the person?
This is 4D with Demi Lovato.
Oh boy, there's more. This is on Demi's channel and it's 35
Living
minutes.
in the fourth dimension means existing.
Oh God, let's see. Oh, where's this going?
Hi, boo.
Hi.
Oh God, this is Alok. Alok Vade Menon. Oh no. Oh. This is the person this is the other non-binary, I guess, the leader of the non-binary sector of the cult. At least this person looks like they're actually, not just identifying biologically male or female, and it looks like they've been that way a minute. Demi's just bored and doing something.
I am so...
This guy does look like a Brandon Rogers character. 100%.
So excited to have you on here. Everyone, this is my really good friend Alok.
What kind of name is Alok?
And This is a topic that is something that is really important for me to discuss because I identify as non-binary.
No, you don't. You're lying sack of shit. You are bored. You need real problems in your life. You need to lose all of your money. Of course, you seem like someone who has the constitution within yourself that if that happened, you would end up dead in a week. So I guess I don't want that to happen to you, but well, I guess once you stop being bored, maybe you'll move on to something else.
And when I think of people who know so much about this topic, I immediately think of you.
There's no one who knows anything about this topic. It's not a real topic. I mean, I guess you could have knowledge on it that's useless knowledge since it's not real. I mean, it'd be like it's like having a lot of knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons, but then acting like Dungeons and Dragons has real world impact, right? That's the difference. A lot of knowledge on Dungeons and Dragons is cool in context with the game, but if you try to put Dungeons and Dragons knowledge to real life application and say it matters in real life, well, then it doesn't. That's useless knowledge now.
I just want to start off by saying congratulations, and
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Exactly. This is the nonsense that's going to ruin the entire fucking actual community of people who are transgendered, lesbian, bisexual, or gay. Because this fake shit. Demi fucking Lovato, who's embraced her femininity and abused it and exploited it her entire career, because the only person that I will not deliberately mispronoun is someone who is actually psychologically transgender, dealing with like gender dysphoria, because that's just rude. But if you're just playing pretend one day, because non-binary is playing pretend, it doesn't psychologically exist, fuck off. Fuck off. And if Demi came out as a guy, I wouldn't buy it for a fucking second. And I guess she knew no one would buy that, and she needed attention, so she went with non-binary. It's not fucking real. Like, sociology needs to end. Sociology is where you can get a degree in gender studies and all that. Sociology has overstayed its welcome. It's not real science. It never has been. It's objectively a subjective science of nothing. It needs to go away. It is the reason for the Twitter mobs. It is the reason for the left-wing cult. I'm not even a conservative, and I know this shit has to stop, right? I'm the person that supports transition therapy for transgender folks, that supports universal basic income for the United States. I am someone who, in my childhood, probably would have been considered full-on pretty far-left Democrat. But even I can understand that the cult that is the far left has become equally as dangerous but more powerful than the cult of the far right, in which you see things like the Ku Klux Klan and Nazism. The far left has gotten to a point that is equal with the far right in cult mentality, and it's newer. It's within the last 20-ish years that the postmodern movement has really rooted itself in the brains of the cultish hive mind of the left. The problem is the power that the left holds is similar to the power that the far right used to hold when the KKK used to walk the streets and Nazism and fascism was popular. Those powers no longer exist in the cult of the far right. So the far right really isn't that big of a threat in daily life or in impact because they don't have power. But now the far left is getting power because it's trendy and it's popular. And if that shit doesn't stop, then every country that tolerates this form of the cult, because, the only way to stop the cult is to not tolerate it. We stopped tolerating the KKK and we stopped tolerating fascism and Nazism. And that's why it lost a bunch of its stronghold. But if we tolerate this bullshit, this sociology nonsense that's anti-science, bigoted, because bigotry means violently against anything that's against their views, anti-discussion, anti-argument, anti-science, block you if you disagree, attack everything that's against this completely non-factual rhetoric. If we don't stand up against this bullshit, then all we're going to have is the same kind of country we had when it was being run by the KKK on the low, just with the other side running it. So I'm not going to watch the rest of this filth. I already gave the attention that Demi wanted. Demi's not smart enough to know the kind of impact this bullshit she's doing is. She just wants attention. That's all it is. Obviously, she's not actually non-binary because, first of all, you can't be. And secondly, even if you could be, I wouldn't believe that she was. Non-binary doesn't exist. Non-binary is, again, privileged boredom. That's all it is. It's not a psychological reality. Transgender is. It's different sexual identities are. But non-binary is gender. Gender isn't real. And if you disagree with the idea that non-binary doesn't exist, you can't. It's like disagreeing that the sky is blue. You could go ahead and try to disagree that the sky is blue, but reality will never coincide with your false beliefs. Non-binary isn't a real condition. This is why it doesn't. If you want to know if something's a real condition, see if it exists in impoverished areas and impoverished countries. The non-binary doesn't, because you have to invent it. You have to invent the social construct needed for gender, for non-binary to exist. Things that exist without social influence are things like, transgender issues where someone sexually does not identify with their own sexual bits. That exists regardless of social construct because it's a sexually or a sexual identity thing. It has to do with biology and psychology. Different sexual orientations like homosexuality or bisexuality, those, or asexuality, not being sexual, those things exist psychologically, so it doesn't matter the culture you're in, it can exist. If it can't exist unless the culture fosters it to exist, then it's not fucking real. It's made up. It's a made-up state of mind. Now, you can live in a made-up state of mind, sure, but it doesn't make it any less a made-up state of mind. And that's what I'm saying. Non-binary only exists if you invent it to exist, and there's no reason for it to exist. There's no benefit to it existing. But there's a lot of harm that comes from it, because when you indoctrinate people to believe little things that aren't true, little by little, as long as you could chip away at people believing things that aren't true, then you could control their minds. This is how cults work. This is how religions work. This is how humans have been controlled for all of human history. The way that you control humans and get them to do unspeakable acts that you look back on in history and say, how did that happen? Well, it all started by getting people to believe little things that aren't true. And it always seems innocent. Just get them to believe this one thing that's not true. Then you could get them to believe the next thing that's not true, and the next thing that's not true. That's how a cult and a religion works. Non-binary is an untruth, because gender is an untruth in itself. The only purpose of gender being identified by a society was to quickly stereotype things that are common of each biological sex due to traits that are specific to each biological sex. That's the only purpose that gender has ever supposed to serve, and it's the only practical purpose it ever could serve. So, this kind of bullshit is the part of the cult that you must resist. It's always going to be the things that seem harmless and nice and trendy that build the cult to be the strongest. And I'm not in favor of a new uprising of the KKK, but from the other side. I was enjoying living a life in Western society in which the only cults that we had were the cults from the right, and they'd been subdued into nothingness because they lost their power. But these cults of the left keep getting power. We can't let that fucking shit happen. I am not in favor of the SJW being the new KKK. And they've already shown they're willing to be that way through the violence that these groups have created, through the hateful rhetoric and bigotry that these groups spew, the cancel culture, the absolute denial of scientific truths in the name of their cult's agenda. The writing is on the walls, and the way you stop this is by speaking up against it and saying this isn't okay. This is not about making people feel good. The veils that they are putting in front of you are bullshit. And to think that it doesn't matter, it's trivial because who cares if they identify as an Apache helicopter? No, it does matter, because when you get people, especially young people, to believe things that aren't true, That is what mind control is founded on. Let's go back to the KKK. How did the KKK get so much power and white supremacy? Because they gave false science and made people believe it. They made people believe in skull indentations in black people that made them subservient and bullshit like that, which scientifically didn't have a leg to stand on. But they had enough scientists claim that it did, that it gained popularity. And you just get people to believe little mistruths, and suddenly you have justification to attempt to isolate or genocide a certain group of people. So this is the road that we walk down when we allow small falsities to enter. And something like non-binary might seem insignificant, but it is the little foot that a cult needs to get in the door of getting people, especially young people, to believe in things that aren't true, because it only takes them taking a couple of things that aren't true to start believing bigger things that aren't true. It is how a cult operates. Study cults, study religion, and look at how the radical left operates. It is the same thing. It is the exact same thing. We are witnessing the birth of one of the most powerful, aggressive, and bigoted cults we have seen since the Nazi parties, fascism, and the Ku Klux Klan. In no small words. And the people who will push it the most are the people who have no idea of the damning impact or their involvement in it. They're just going to go along with it for the social credit. That's how Nazi Germany happened. That's how this shit happens. Look at the signs, and all you have to do is never tolerate it. Call it bullshit when you see it, and take away any power that you can. And until next time, I scheme, you scheme, we all scheme for ice cream. See you later.